What's up, everyone? Welcome back. Welcome into Shaw Locals Bears Insider Podcast. It is Thursday morning, November 10th. We are Thursday morning, Friday morning. I don't know what day of the week it is, Sean. It is Friday morning, November 10th. We are here with you guys to talk about a Bears win. Sean, we got a Bears win on a Thursday night football. It wasn't exactly pretty football, but a win is a win in the NFL.
Yeah, a win is a win, and that's what the Bears will take it right now because there haven't been a whole lot of these, in the last year and a half. So you get a win, you get to 3-7, you can take a deep breath for 9 days or whatever until they face a really good Lions team in on November 19th, and just enjoy this one for a little bit.
I'm really looking forward to that Lions game. We got a lot of time to talk about it, but
Yeah,
Mark says, "Wow, after a win like that, I honestly don't know what to say."
he says win in parentheses.
Yeah, win in parentheses. Mark, I don't really know what to say either. Like a lot of times, was it really a win though? Mark says. I mean, it was a win in the a couple aspects. One is you came out of it healthy.
Yeah.
Two, you made sure it was kind of a nice situation because regardless of whether you win or loss, it was going to help in draft position last night. I think Carolina or the Bears winning that game and keeping Carolina in contention with the number one overall pick. I think the Bears probably at this point, I think we talked about this a little bit earlier in the week, probably going to end up with 4 or 5, maybe 6 wins,
Hmm.
despite being a bad football team. So Carolina losing, that's probably your best chance to end up with maybe the number one pick, maybe at least a top 2 or top 3 pick. So overall, I'd say bad football last night, but a good night for the Bears.
Yeah, I mean, it was going to be a win-win draft-wise as you're looking toward the draft next year. I think, some of it looked like ESPN and maybe some of the other analytics websites had kind of said that, yeah, a Bears win over the Panthers is going to ultimately help their draft position because that Panthers team is bad, man. It's hard to see them beating anybody the way they played last night. I mean, Bryce Young didn't even look good. There was nobody you would shine a light on and say, this was our bright spot or anything like that. That was just like one of those games that you want to wash your hands of and forget if you're a Panthers fan.
I I said that on Tuesday when we met after the Bears game in Week 9 that I had sat there and watched that Carolina game and the late slotted. We were waiting for Bears content to come in after that game against the Saints, and holy hell, was that a tough watch, that Carolina team. So I knew what we were getting into last night. Um, Again, it's early in the Bryce Young tenure,
Hmm.
but like he went 21 to 38 last night. He did not look effective at any point in that game.
Well, yeah, and look, talking to members of the Bears, coaching staff, players, whatever, all week long. I know it was a short week, but when we did get to talk to some of those guys, the number one thing they point to is the accuracy. He can make all the throws. Um, sure, he's a little bit small, but everybody points to that accuracy, and it wasn't there last night. He completed 55% of his passes. I think the Bears did a really good job of pressuring him. Montez
Three
Sweat did
sacks, three, count
three
them.
sacks in the game. Montez Sweat didn't have any of those sacks, but he really affected the game. Next Gen Stats had him at 8 pressures, and I think in the stat book he might have had 3 quarterback hits. So you really felt his presence, and I think that's what you needed if you were the Bears. It was limited in that first game with Montez Sweat, but last night is exactly what you wanted to see, even though he didn't have a sack.
Yeah, the defensive line overall playing better. Going back to the game against the Saints, they didn't get home in that, but I felt like the defensive line in general did play better. Um, Going back to that game, yeah, 3 sacks is great. Obviously, you got to see it against better teams moving forward. I'll say this: for as many question marks remain about the Bears, I'm starting to feel pretty good about their run defense at this point. It's really coming together. I think Gervin Dexter got. I haven't gone back and looked at snap count, but I'm pretty sure that had to spike last night. I think he was on the field quite a bit, and he played pretty well, I thought.
Yeah, I saw a tweet this morning. It looked like Javon had 29 snaps, so that was quite a few more than last week, and that's obviously a good thing. You want your second round pick playing as much as possible, and yeah, I mean the defensive line has done a really nice job. Um, and the Carolina couldn't do anything in the run game. Miles Sanders, I think he finished with negative yardage. That was rough, and the Saints before that couldn't really run the ball very effectively outside of when Taysom Hill took it in the red zone. The Bears have done a really nice job. Andrew Billings, Justin Jones. We mentioned Jervon. You could talk about those defensive ends too. They've done a really good job of holding down run games really all season, but especially in recent weeks.
That's going to matter moving forward. When we start talking about the outlook of this coaching staff, and we got a long ways to go to know if Matt Eberflus and this coaching staff is going to be back. Let's say for this sake of argument, let's say they are. When you start looking for building blocks, saying this franchise can turn a corner under this current regime, Matt Eberflus was brought in obviously as a defensive coordinator, with a defensive background. You're running that cover 2 defense where you're not blitzing a lot of guys. If you're able to at least start with an elite run defense, I think that's a really good place for this defense to be. I'm starting to feel a lot more confident in it.
Yeah, and it helps that you're playing Derek Carr and a rookie quarterback the last 2 weeks, obviously, but you got to take the good with the bad, and you played really well over these last 2 games. So you know what, that's a win. And I thought Kyler Gordon played fantastic. That was one of his best games ever. He looked really good in those. There were a few times that the Bears special teams did a nice job of pinning the Panthers deep in their own end, and Kyler made a couple of nice plays, open field tackles for loss in those situations, and he played really nice, defending the pass as well. That was one of his best games. You saw that I know there were a few penalties here and there, but overall, I think the Bears secondary played really well. I know the Panthers don't have a lot of dudes at the receiver position, but Adam Thielen didn't really get a whole lot going, and without him, there's not much for Carolina to do in the passing game.
There's not a lot for Carolina to do overall for right now. You can find Sean on X at Sean_Hammond. You can find myself on Twitter at Kyle Nabors. Of course, you can find all of our content at Bears_Insider. You can also find Sean on Instagram and Threads. You can go to shawlocal.com to find all of our content up there throughout the week. And if you are watching this live on YouTube, do us a favor, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to Shaw Local's YouTube page. It helps other people find the show. And we got Jake Bartleson producing behind the scenes. Jake, you were over at Soldier Field last night. Jake, come on, join us here. Let's talk some Bears football, buddy. How did you enjoy that last night?
Let's talk some Bears Panthers.
It's a tough first year for Bryce Young, right? I think, to be fair, I'm not sure how many starters that they have would be playing for the Kansas City Chiefs right now. But that being said, there's a long way to go for them. Defensively, Carolina was missing their top corner, their top pass rusher. I felt that they were pretty good. But yeah, it's a rough football team.
You were actually in the Carolina locker room after the game last night, right? Yeah. What is kind of the tenor? I mean, we know how upset Bears fans understandably have been with the lack of progress with the Bears. Carolina really struggling right now. What was that locker room like?
So I didn't get too far into the weeds with that, with the struggles and everything. I talked to Amir Smith-Marset, who Bears fans would remember. If you go back to last year, he had that fumble against the Minnesota Vikings, kind of lost him the game. He obviously had the punt return for a touchdown. That was like the big spark play for the Panthers last night.
Did you guys when that happened? Did you guys both go, "Oh no, is like here we go"?
Yeah, right. And so I went over and talked to Amir just about that play. Talked about his end of tenure with the Bears, and then for his sake, he doesn't get a lot of snaps on offense. But perhaps, with the special teams plays that, that he made, maybe it translates. But, in terms of just the tenor of the locker room, I think I just get a sense that they know what they are. I don't think anybody had lofty expectations for this. And so they're just trying to kind of grit their teeth through a really difficult season and then see where, the chips fall after that. But um, it wasn't an overly emotional locker room. I think it was just kind of ho hum, for the lack of a better phrase.
I see CJ says one of the radio stations predicted the punt return.
Yeah, he's talking about the score. I think it was Bernstein or somebody.
It was very Bears for Amir Smith Marset to return that punt. When I saw him, like,
Right.
oh
It
no,
was. Jake, what was he like after the game in those interviews? Smith
Could not
Marset.
have been nicer. I mean,
Yeah.
he was really great guy, and like I even talked to him. I was like, that happened last year, and now that you had this play against your former team, does that mean anything to you? And he took the high road. He's like, listen, they made and I'm paraphrasing, they made the decision that they did, but it led me to finding an eventual opportunity with Carolina, and I'm going to try to make the best of it. And so he took the high road. He was great. So, yeah.
Rick, he is a really nice guy. I mean, I think he still has a lot of friends on this Bears team because he's a likable dude. What's Rick say here, Kyle?
Rick says anybody else when the laugh out loud when the Bears lined up in victory formation and got a false start penalty.
I almost put that as a moment.
It's just like nice encapsulation of where the Bears are.
Yeah, like I mean, even a victory formation, they can't even do that right. Like there's some irony to that.
So what was going on with the Matt Eberflus coming out of the halftime with the summing up our sleeves?
Man, I don't know if you saw. I know you were busy last night, Kyle. I don't know if you saw the clip of that moment, but it looked like on the Amazon broadcast, he said he told the sideline reporter he had a trick up his sleeve, and he did it with a really creepy laugh that I don't know took over the internet, I guess. And what exactly it was that was up his sleeve remains a mystery.
I heard
if they used it, if they showed it, it nobody knows what it was, or they saved it for next time. I don't know.
Yeah, who was asking the line of questioning during the post game press conference, because that was entertaining as well.
Yeah, that was Jason Leisure.
That's who I thought it was.
And Jason does a really good job of like following his train of thought and asking good follow-up questions. And he asked something about the room was talking about that moment, Eberflus was talking about it, and Jason followed up and was like, well, what exactly was up your sleeve? And Eberflus says, well, what's up yours? And that was just a classic Eberflus moment right there. Nobody knew what to say.
We're gonna move on. I don't know what to say either.
Anyway, if anyone has thoughts on that, leave it in the comments.
Mike B says the Bears would have lost by double digits to legitimately 30 other NFL teams last night. It was bad football. I mean,
that's not wrong.
There's no getting around it. It was bad football last night. I think you just got to look for, in a game like that, some small victory. You talked about Kyler Gordon earlier, Sean. Like, he had a good game. Donta Foreman continues to run incredibly tough. What do you think about Donta Foreman and how they're going to divvy up these touches when Khalil Herbert, we assume, will be back coming out of this little mini bye here?
Yeah, there was some optimism he would play on Thursday. He was back at practice this week, but that didn't ultimately end up happening. He's still on IR, but I would expect he'll be back for that Lions game. And now you got a tough situation. You're talking about two really good running backs. It's hard to see them. I can't see them, completely taking D'Onta Foreman out of the game plan. He's gonna, at the very minimum, have to have half the touches. I mean, he's played so well lately, and they really leaned on him and needed him in that game last night, because the only thing they could really do was pick up 4, 5, 6 chunk yards on those running plays, and the passing game just wasn't really there, and you leaned on that running game, and you played the field position with your special teams, and ultimately that won you the game.
And it's you're this isn't a bad thing, I guess, but like you got Khalil Herbert. We talked before, last year and then before the injury this year, one of the most efficient runners in the NFL. You don't want to see a guy lose injury or lose his job to injury.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, Donta Foreman with 21 carries last night, Roshan Johnson with 5, Darrington Evans with another 2. I have to assume you're going to see more of a 50-50 timeshare than what we saw last night. Uh, the other side to that though is like you've heard the offensive line talk about like how much energy Donta Foreman brings. Like they
Mhm.
like blocking for this guy. So it's a lot of things to consider there with how you're going to divvy up these touches.
Yeah, those linemen love that. I was talking to Darnell Wright last night after the game about it. He's like, "Yeah, man, if he's gonna go run through a dude, then I sure as heck better be doing the same thing for him." And those guys, they really like Deontay. Look, ultimately, it's a good problem to have. You got two really good backs. I think the easy thing to do would be to go 50-50 at least for the first game or two and see who stands out. And then, you can maybe make a decision down the stretch if you want to focus on one guy or the other. And who knows? It's the running back spot. One of these guys might get hurt at some point down the stretch here, and then you're back to one dude. Um, it's a good problem to have, but yeah, I think Deontay has absolutely earned the right to still see touches.
Mike throwing some shade. Donta Foreman, that guy who was inactive for the first 5 games, that Donta Foreman. Yeah, that Donta Foreman, Mike. Jake, you see that question about Rick about the defense? Can you throw that one up there? It said, yeah, Rick says, is the Bears defense for real now, or is it more of the teams that we have played?
By far the teams.
Yeah.
Jake, you got thoughts? Go ahead.
I was just going to say by far the teams. I mean, look who they've beat.
I mean, yeah, look what Justin Herbert did, just a couple of weeks ago. You can't forget. It feels like a while ago now, but that was 3 weeks ago that he completed his first 15 straight passes or whatever. Against the Bears. And so, yeah, I mean, I think when you go up against those elite quarterbacks, this defense, and to be fair, a lot of defenses struggle against those guys. But yeah, I think the opponents have made a big difference here these last 2 weeks.
I think so. I see Mike says I think it's a little bit of both actually on the defense.
I think that's
I
fair
agree.
too.
I do think the defense has considerably better. I'll go as far to say it's gotten considerably better, but that doesn't mean that it's good. I just think that's how bad it was at the beginning of the year.
Well, and there were a lot of guys injured early on too.
Right.
That secondary was banged up for a few weeks there.
That's a good point.
So
go ahead.
You got Eddie Jackson back. You got Jalen Johnson was out for a little bit. So you have some consistency on the back end, and yeah, you throw Montez Sweat in the mix. I mean, you would expect the defense to be better. So we'll see. I guess we'll learn pretty quickly because they got a really good Lions offense coming up here. So that's going to be a good indicator of just where this defense really is.
Yeah, when you're not getting gashed on the ground on first and second down all the time, that helps a lot too. But yeah, I really can't wait for this Detroit Lions game. Obviously, we'll be back next week to start previewing that. But like, guys, I don't want to wait. Like, we're 18 minutes into this podcast. I don't want to talk about Bears Panthers anymore. I just want to kind of flush it. Before we do,
you weren't enjoying yourself last night. What? What's not to like?
It's bad football. It's no, it's like the Bears are now as healthiest as they've been. They have 9 days off before they face the Detroit. I almost said the Detroit Tigers.
You got Jason Benetti on your mind.
Yeah. If we were on the Friday Night Drive podcast, Michael Dwojak and Steve Susi and I yesterday morning, having a nice venting session over the Jason Benetti news. We're gonna back to football.
Yeah. Let's not go off the rails.
But no, like you're gonna get Justin Fields back. Like you have the roster that you expected to see. There's no excuses about like early season. We need to make adjustments. everything should be ready to go, hit the ground running. You shouldn't win the game against Detroit, but it also shouldn't be like, it shouldn't be sloppy. You shouldn't get your ass kicked. Like, go out there and lose a shootout and have Justin Fields put up 300 yards. Like, that's what it should look like.
It shouldn't be like the last time they were in Detroit. And I think that game was maybe the low point of last season when they got pounded. I think it was 41-10 or something. Braxton Jones played a terrible game. I think the only good thing was a Velus Jones kick return that went for like 60 yards or something. Like I think they want to get that bad taste out of their mouth from the last time that they played in Detroit. And you're right. You're coming off, I know it's not a bye, but you got some extra time here and you can rest up this weekend and put together a really good game plan. And you should be in these games against your division opponents. I know the Detroit Lions are a really good team. They're clearly the class of the NFC North, but the Bears are healthy. Assuming Justin Fields and Khalil Herbert are back, you're going to be as healthy as ever. Maybe even Nate Davis. I don't know what the situation is there.
That's what I was going to just ask you about. Is like, is Nate Davis possibly back for that game? Are you going to have your starting offensive line fully intact?
I would think that another 9 days would help, but we don't really know. Again, he hasn't practiced at all, so I don't know if 3 practices is enough for him to get back after that ankle injury.
So that was a high ankle sprain. That was a high ankle sprain where he had a guy roll up on the back of his ankle. So that's definitely that was a tough one.
That was a tough one, and you know what? Those injuries, as far as ankle injury goes, those high ankle sprains are the ones you don't want. Those ones take a little time to get fixed, to get back to normal. And so I definitely think Nate Davis is still in doubt. So I wouldn't expect him to be back.
But let's assume that he is back. I mean, obviously they have a decision then. Where do you move Tevin? And then what do you do with Whitehair? I mean, so those are things that they're going to be talking about over the next 9 days.
Yeah, I mean, Nate's, they didn't put him on IR, so they expect him back at some point. So you're right, Jake. I mean, that's going to be the discussion that they're going to have. Personally, I think you move Tevin back to left, you put Nate Davis at right guard, and you go with whoever you think is the best center. If that's Lucas Patrick, that's what I would do. If you think he gives you the best chance at center, obviously that would push Cody Whitehair to the bench, but you could probably go either way with those guys.
I don't have a problem with pushing Cody Whitehair to the bench at this point. I think we talked about this earlier in the week. You're moving on from Cody Whitehair this offseason. You're looking to solidify the center position. It just hasn't worked for him at the center spot. Got to get this out of the way quickly, guys. The Ken Nelson Auto Group sponsors Shaw Local Bears Insider Podcast, proudly serving the Sauk Valley area for over 55 years. Ken Nelson Auto Group offers 10 new vehicle franchises in one convenient location right here in Dixon, Illinois. Shop a great selection of new and pre-owned vehicles at KenNelsonAuto.com.
Kyle, we're not just getting out of the way. We love our sponsors. And whoever's out there, give us more.
Yes. We encourage you, give us more. All right, we got a few minutes left with you guys this morning. I see Mike says Tevin Jenkins is going to have an argument for the top guard in all of football at this rate. He's playing incredibly well, and let's just hope that Tevin Jenkins is able to stay on the football field for an extended period of time finally.
Yeah, hopefully he can play out the year. That would be a really good thing for Tevin. And I agree. He's playing at like such a high level right now, maybe the highest level we've seen him play at. I just hope it doesn't get completely overlooked because he's on a bad football team. I know that especially when you talk linemen, you look at the Pro Bowls and the All Pros, you're usually looking at good football teams. Hopefully Tevin, gets the respect that he deserves because he's showing like he's playing really good football right now.
Here's a question. Like, you're now halfway through his 3rd season. He's a 2nd round pick, right? Is he a 2nd round pick?
Yeah, he was a 2nd round pick.
Yeah, 2nd round pick. So you're not looking at a 5th year option. So you're going into last year of his rookie contract next year.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to see how this plays out. Like, he's not getting signed to a contract extension right now, but he's making himself a lot of money with the way he's playing. The injury concerns are obviously going to play a lot into that, but that's going to be a conversation this offseason. Like, if he stays healthy, you're going to hear a lot of people asking, like, when's Tevin Jenkins getting paid?
Oh, it's absolutely going to be a conversation. I mean, that's yeah, he's the next obvious guy when you're looking towards next year. And I think it's, the injuries are going to be a big part of it. I think it'd be huge in that regard for him to stay healthy the rest of the season, because
Yeah.
he's struggled with those injuries, and that's your biggest red flag when you're thinking about extending Tevin Jenkins.
Absolutely. It's got to be the injuries. Speaking of injuries, Rick has a question in there. It said better guard, Tevin or Kyle Long. Do you see that, Jake? There you go. That's a fun one.
That is a fun one.
Another
That's
guy,
hard.
another guy, Kyle Long, where career cut a bit short by injuries. I go Kyle Long as of now. Like, I think that the upside of Tevin Jenkins, the way he's going, surpasses Kevin or Kyle Long. Man, Kyle was really, really good.
Yeah, Kyle, I am with you, Kyle. I'm going with Kyle Long. At least right now, you give it, if Tevin plays another couple of years and is healthy and is playing like he is right now, you can absolutely throw him into that conversation. Kyle Long was a 3-time Pro Bowler. Tevin Jenkins isn't quite there yet, so we'll see. But maybe that's in his future.
Plus, it seems like Kyle Long was like the identity of those offensive lines. Like when you just thought about it, like he kind of brought the toughness aspect for sure.
I think Tevin could end up being that guy too.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, he's got that personality. I mean, he can be kind of quiet, but he's also like, I mean, we've heard about that going back to Oklahoma State with Tevin Jenkins, right? Kind of like a quieter guy, but like absolutely a killer on the football field. And you see that with the way he plays.
He's one of those dudes that flips a switch. I mean, he's the nicest guy off the field. I really like talking to Tevin. I would not want to be standing in front of him on the football field. I'll say that.
Let's see. Where do you guys want to go, or how we want to wrap this up? We got a couple minutes left, guys.
Well, Kyle, if I know you didn't want to talk about the Panthers game, but we can talk about more than that. If Justin Fields is back, how do you look at this 4-game entirety of the Tyson Bagent stretch here that we've seen?
I think you have a competent backup that you can continue to develop. It's nice knowing that you have a guy in-house that can keep you in football games if he doesn't turn the football over. I guess that's really all you can take away from it. But I don't think that's a bad thing. Like, I think you should feel good about what you discovered out of Tyson Bagent.
I think ideally your backup quarterback should be able to help you tread water, while your dude is out. And Tyson is 2-2 as the starter, with Justin Fields out, and that's exactly that's really all you can ask for. Beat the bad teams. If you make it interesting with the good teams, great. But as long as you can stay around 500 while your quarterback's out, when you're a team that's actually in a playoff hunt, unlike the Bears, that's huge if you can get by without your starting quarterback. And I think Tyson Bagent has absolutely showed that he can be that. He's only going to get better. I mean, he's only going to get more experienced and watch more film, work in the weight room and all that stuff. And you would think that he's going to keep improving, and you have a really good backup quarterback on a cheap contract, because backup quarterbacks make a lot of money too, the veteran ones.
Mitch just got himself like what, $13 million this past offseason?
Yeah, I mean, you see it all over the league. Like those backup guys, we make fun of them for making all this money and hardly playing, but that's a huge spot on those contending teams.
Do you think he has? I know it's early, but like he's got a little bit of Chase Daniel career arc in him, where he can probably stick in this league, assuming health and everything, 10, 12, 13 years.
I think so. I mean,
be an asset in the room.
I think one of the biggest things with Tyson Bagent, and I think that's a good comparison, Jake, because if you're going to last in this league as a backup quarterback, it's the guys that are really intelligent and the guys that are just they're film rats, like they find a way to make themselves valuable. And like Sean, obviously, or both of you guys have been around Tyson Bagent a lot more than I have, but like hearing him talk, I get the impression of someone who gets it. You know what I mean?
100%.
And go back to like the Sunday Night Football Chris Collinsworth comments, make of that what you will, in terms of, when he was like, well, maybe they have Justin take a look at what he's doing on film, that stuff. Like, moving past to that, like, I think the coaches really, really like him. And I think that comment was informed, probably, I'm going to speculate, by those offensive coaches.
Yeah, that's huge to have a guy in the room who is intelligent, who, like you said, Kyle, he gets it. I think he gets it in, the football aspect, and just, the way he handles himself with the media, and in the locker room, he seems to really get along with the other guys. He's exactly the type of person that you would want to keep around. Obviously you'd rather have Justin Fields playing, but he's going to be an asset no matter who the starting quarterback is. If that's Justin next year, if they move on, like he's gonna be valuable to that room.
Mike says it will be very interesting to see the game plan they strap Fields to. I wanted to end this in today's podcast with this question from Mark, right above that, Jake. Says if Fields puts up 35 points in the next game, but the Bears lose, would you still draft a quarterback? I hope not. I want to not just the next game. I want to talk about Justin Fields here as we expect him back for that Detroit game. What do you guys need to see from Justin Fields over the rest of the season for you to feel comfortable with the Bears bringing him back next year as your starting quarterback?
I mean, if he comes out here and does what he did against Denver and Washington, throwing for 4 touchdowns, it's not really even, going to be a conversation if he's throwing for 300 yards. But again, that's a very small sample size of what we've seen over the entirety of his young career. And, you just want to see the consistency. I think, the passing game has to keep showing that improvement, keep throwing the ball to DJ Moore. I think while, I don't know that the Bears have made their decision on this yet at this point. I think they want to see him play down the stretch, but I really just feel like what you see on the field is going to tell you, what they're going to do.
Yeah, the only thing I was going to add is, just staying healthy and physical and being dominant in the things that he is really good at, running the football and all those things. And then if the passing game comes along and is consistent, that would be a good sign for him going into the offseason. I agree. I don't think the evaluation is made yet, but I think the fact that you have Carolina's pick, it's a really nice insurance policy.
You have a defense that has moderately improved. You got an offensive line that has gotten better and is as healthy as it's been all season. Like, you went out before the season even started and you brought in more assets to put around Justin Fields. Like, everything kind of lines up here for these 7 games that if Justin Fields can stay on the field, Sean, you talk about the consistency. He's got to win some football games at some point, right? Like, you got to be able to beat good teams. You can't just beat Denver. Like, the Bears need to find a way.
I mean, they need to beat bad teams more than they have.
Yeah. Well, that's very, like,
there has to be a drive where it was like that was Justin Fields.
Yeah,
to go win the football game.
You're looking like that CJ Stroud type drive you just saw against Tampa Bay. Like, go to Detroit and just find a way to win a football game that you shouldn't win. Like, we haven't seen that yet.
He doesn't have to take over every game, the whole game. You're right. You want to see him take over in those key moments, play really well down the stretch of a game, or maybe, maybe it's in the third quarter where they can get themselves a good lead against somebody. And you look at the schedule again, outside of they got the Lions twice. I mean, everything else is a winnable game. And, like you said, Kyle, the defense is playing really well. This defense as we've seen it the past couple weeks, I think should give you opportunities to win against the Vikings, to win against the Browns, to win against the Cardinals, the Falcons, the Packers. Those are all games that they're going to keep you in those games. Justin Fields and the offense need to score points and win some of these.
All right, guys, we got to get out of here. Thank you, everyone who joined us live this morning. You can also download or listen to Shaw Local Bears Insider Podcast wherever you get your podcasts nowadays. For Sean Hammond and Jake Bartleson, I am Kyle Nabors. Make sure you stick to shawlocal.com all weekend long, and all week next week. We'll have plenty of coverage for you as Justin Fields hopefully makes his comeback here as we get ready for that game against Detroit. Thank you again for everyone who joined us this morning. We'll talk to you guys later.